also go ahead and type into the chat, what is your primary issue with sending email? Are you afraid to ask people to sign up for it? Have you not actually asked anyone to sign up for it at all? Did you start a list and you felt really enthusiastic about it, and then you couldn't think of what to write for the second or the third newsletter, and it just kind of stretched out for a really long time, and then you didn't actually write another newsletter ever? Tell us what's going on in your personal email life and how that is going. All righty. Not knowing where to publicize it. Louise has a hard time writing more than 5 or 6 weeks. Suzette doesn't know how to get people to sign up. Jacqueline said there is a sign up on my website and no one registered. Carolyn is overwhelmed by what to include. These are really great things. Cheryl's not sure what kind of content people really want to see. These are all terrific, terrific things to think about, and we are going to talk about them all tonight. So let me go ahead and pin you, Jenny, so that you stay up front as well. There we go. And we are going to get started here. Welcome to the Writer's Bridge. I am so excited to have you today. We are going to talk about today all about email. Now, a lot of you are individual authors gearing up to market a single book. Our guest today is marketing her company's services, and in email, I market my book, but I also market my services, my retreats, my editing, etc. Jenny and I are both authors, but we're not necessarily focusing on selling a single book. But by building audience as an author for your topic, for your idea, meeting the reader where you are, you create a group of people who will be ready to buy when you are ready to sell. So let me introduce our beautiful guest here. Jenny Nash is the founder and CEO of Author Accelerator. I know a lot of you have heard of it. It's a company that trains and supports book coaches, certifies them so that they can help writers do their very best work. And Jenny's got a great reputation in this area. Her coaching clients have landed 6-figure deals with big fives, including Penguin, Scribner, Simon & Schuster, Hachette, won dozens of national book awards. Her client, KJ Dell'Antonia, some of you might listen to KJ's podcast. The Chicken Sisters was an instant New York Times bestseller and a Reese Witherspoon book club pick. Jenny herself is the author of 11 books in a wide variety of genres, and the ones that are most relevant to us here today are Blueprint for a Nonfiction Book, Plan and Pitch Your Idea, Blueprint for a Book, Build Your Novel from the Inside Out, that's great branding, and Read Books All Day and Get Paid for It, The Business of Book Coaching. And we'll send out Jenny's website links as well in the follow-up email. So Jenny, how did you start your list? What made you think email is what I'm going to do to send out my stuff? And how much of your business is it that comes in through email?
Well, it was a natural for me to do email in the beginning, as I think it would be for all your listeners, because we're writers write is what we do. It's so natural to us. And I was drawn to email in particular because I like to write long. And so all the other social media platforms that limit you felt limiting to me as well. So I gravitated to it just because I could write what I wanted to write. And also I heard the wisdom of every single expert in the entire universe who says, email newsletter, own your own platform. Don't put your work somewhere else where it can be taken away. And over the years, I've actually suffered from having that happen. So I'm a huge, huge fan. What about you?
You know, I first started doing email through a service called TinyLetter about 6 or 7 years ago. And TinyLetter is bare bones, no frills. You get no analytics. You get no information other than people's actual email. You don't get their first name or anything, just their email. But TinyLetter was super simple and it was free. And over the course of 5 or 6 years, I think I may have sent 11 emails. But every single one of them was really well received because I write these kind of travel stories. So they were always well received though. I mean, I was ending up starting every single email with, hey, I know it's been a long time since you've heard from me. Thanks for sticking it out. But people always responded and said, oh, I love this story. Or they interacted with the tweet that I linked in the email. And it was really good, I think, for me to start in that kind of minimal way where it wasn't complicated. I wasn't doing segmentation. I wasn't doing a welcome sequence. All I did was write a story and send it to people who had said, hey, I want to hear from you. What I've started doing in this past year is a new monthly email that is events only, as well as my story email when I feel like writing it. And I got to tell you guys, it has taken me 8 years to come up with the name, The A List. And my name has started with A the entire time. Jenny, what do you think is the minimum workflow for somebody getting started? Devora says in the chat, she is currently using MailerLite, MadMimi, Substack, and MailChimp with different sets of people. What do you think is the bare minimum for us to get started with?
Well, I think in the beginning, it's more important to get a system for developing content and getting comfortable with your content than to fuss too much about the tech. The tech can get enormously complicated, and there are times and places for the tech to be enormously complicated. But for it sounds like where most people are, where they're wanting to build their list, it's really getting comfortable with a system and a process for doing it, and for knowing what to say. So for me, the workflow, that's the most important thing, is how are you going to do that? And one thing I can say to some of the comments in the chat about, I don't know what to say, or I, run out of things, is people want to hear the same thing from you. They don't need to hear something totally new and fresh. You can have, what I do is I have buckets of concepts that I write about. And I actually got this idea from my friend Dan Blank over at We Grow Media, where he helps people find the keywords, like, what do you write about? What is your thing? So whatever that is, whatever you're writing in your fiction or your memoir life, or if you're a book coach and you're balancing those two things, to identify those buckets. And so I have about 5 of them. Maybe sometimes it's more like 6 or 7, but I just keep writing things in those buckets, and they might sort of sound the same to me, or like, didn't I just write about this? Or I'm writing about the same thing over and over again. But people want to hear that from you, and they want to hear the same thing over and over again. And they're coming for you and your energy. They're not coming for like, what is the newest thing under the sun that I could learn, or that this person is saying. So I think it's tapping into what do you care about? Your fiction or your memoir topics are probably all the same, no matter how many books you've written. And we all gravitate towards certain ideas or concepts or things or philosophies or ways of being in the world, and just know what those buckets are. And I recently heard, I think it was Amy Porterfield, say that the most successful people in the newsletter writing world get bored with themselves, that tolerating that boredness is what, or that boredom, that's the word, boredom is,
I like boredness. I'm good with boredness. I'm like a bored. I am bored.
Right? It's the skill you need. Like, here I am writing about this thing again. And it's like, yes, here you are writing about this thing because that's your thing. And that's what people are coming to you for. So to me, the best thing you can do workflow wise is get that system and strategy. If all you have is a mail delivery system and that's your workflow, I think in the beginning, that's it. Just get in the flow. What do you think?
Well, one of the things that I think is really neat and that I've discovered using Flowdesk lately is that you don't even need a website first, because most mail systems will let you make a landing page. And if you are specific about who you are on your sign up landing page, and you are specific about who you are on your social media, it's okay if you don't have a website yet, or if you don't have a good website, or if you haven't figured out how to make a pop-up happen on your website. The absolute minimum workflow to get started is you need some kind of way for people to sign up. And that can be anything from a fancy series of pop-ups that says where people found you, all the way down to everybody who wants the slides from this presentation, please write your email clearly on a piece of paper, which is what I did at HippoCamp for 5 years. And I picked up 100 and I don't know, 100 and so names each year. And yeah, I typed them all in by hand. Now I have this lovely system where I make a QR code and I put it on a slide and they scan the QR code and they sign themselves up. And that's awesome. But the underlying thing there is, here is something of value you would like to have, these lovely slides. You must sign up for my list in order to get it. So you need a way to collect emails and a place to keep them. Super simple. That can be an Excel spreadsheet. If you're sending a list to under 50 people, you can BCC that sucker. Don't do it for more than 50 because it's time to graduate to a real program at that point, but you can start with nothing. You can start with what you already know how to use. I'm also going to suggest that you set up a specific format for your email because it's easier to fill in the blanks than it is to reinvent. So like Louise was saying, every 5 or 6 weeks, she writes a brand new essay. That's awesome. You might also think about, are there shorter pieces of content you could frame it with, both so that it's a little bit easier on you, and also not everybody wants to read a very, very long email. Jenny, how long do you usually make your emails?
They're in the neighborhood, I would say, 500 to 800 words. If they get longer than that, I usually make a little series or something. I mean, I also am on the receiving end of some emails that are super short, and very successful. Like Seth Godin's is famously very short. James Clear's is very short, and I love those too. I have a lot of writer friends that do things like a book I've read, a song I like, something I ate that was good. Just they have a little format and they plug things in. So it doesn't. I think you can lengthwise. You can go to whatever works for you, and you don't have to stick to it. If I typically write long, it doesn't mean I can't write something super short one time too. It's what works for you.
Exactly. And that's why what is working for me too is I have one events list that goes out regularly every single month, and I have one storytelling list, and it's much of the same people, but not all of the same people. And for the storytelling list, I kind of gradually accumulate the story over the course of, like Louise does, 5 or 6 weeks. Jenny, how do you get people to sign up? How do you let people know, hey, there's something in it for you if you get this email?
Oh, that is such a big question. And I think that is the work for sure. And I see some people in the chat commenting on that. How do I get people to sign up? One thing I would say about that, I also saw the thing about unsubscribes is you want unsubscribes. Actually, I think you should be happy that you're getting them because it means people are saying that's not for me. And every single time we send a newsletter, we get a certain number of unsubscribes and a certain number of, you want the trend to be adding rather than subtracting, but you've got to expect that they're going to unsubscribe, and you want that because it means you're being specific and people are saying that that's not for me. So how to get people is just a giant undertaking, and I do think it takes a certain amount of commitment. So I mean, where I am on my business is probably a little bit beyond where most people are because we're running ads, we're doing multiple lead generators all the time, we're spending a lot of time and effort and energy on it. But a few things you can do if your list is small is make sure you're talking about that list everywhere. So it should be in your bios of all your social media. It should be, the sign up link should be on the email itself so people could forward it to friends. If you're doing a freebie or a giveaway and putting that out in the world, it should be, the sign up should be on the bottom of that. If you're doing a guest post, you should drive toward that on your link. It shouldn't just go to your homepage or your about page. If your goal is I want to increase my newsletter signups, then that should be what everything drives to. And sometimes we get kind of confused because it's like, well, I'm selling this course, or I have this new thing I'm offering, this new program, or I have a book coming out, or this or that. And you have to be intentional about what your business goal is at this moment. If you're in between book launches, for example, that should be your only goal, is building your list. And so if you're on a podcast, if you're anything you're doing, you want to be talking about sign up for my newsletter, sign up for my newsletter. And then, as Allison mentioned, giving them something in exchange for that. You all know, because we're all humans in the world, you're reluctant to give your email out to people. It feels personal. And lately I've been seeing more and more people asking for phone numbers, which is a whole other level. I know.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
I know. And it's crazy because I find myself like, I pull my hands back, like, I'm not giving my
even when it's optional, it turns me off the rest of the form, because I'm like, really? Do you really think I want you to text me? Because I don't.
I know. Well, there's certain things that are requiring it now. And so that's just telling you that there's levels of intimacy that people are requiring. And giving someone your email is an intimate thing. And so you want to give them something in return, not to bribe them, but to me it's an exchange of, it's almost trust. Like, I'm trusting that you're going to give me this intimate bit of detail about you, your email, and I would like to give you something. I would like to help you. I'm here to help you, right? Or to offer you something, or to entertain you. And again, that goes to the buckets that you're identifying for your own self. Let's say, well, I know Suzanne Dunlap, who's on this call, just had a historical fiction novel come out. And, I've seen beautiful things out there on social media from Suzanne about, here's how to know when you're done researching historical novel. Here's an interesting portrait from the time my novel was set. Here's an interesting fact. Here's, she's leaning into the historical aspect of what she does and what she knows, and that's what her readers are going to want and to come to her for. And so that generosity of, I know why you're coming to me. It's because you like history too. You like this period of history too. You like thinking about these ideas too. You like talking about these ideas. You're interested in the minutia of these things, and that goes to knowing exactly who you're speaking to, which is what writers have to do as well. So the whole thing about getting people to come to your list is, it's not just tactical or mechanical. That's part of it. There's things you can do, which we've talked about. Put your sign up everywhere, talk about it everywhere, drive to it everywhere.
And I want to add something in there, which is that, remember, the vast majority of your audience sees about 10 to 15% of what you post on social media. So post about your newsletter every single week, because you're going to do it for 3 years. And at the end of 3 years, someone is going to say to you, oh, wow, you have a newsletter? Because they won't have seen it. And I think Jenny made a great point earlier about intimacy. The real value of email is, it's not social media. It's not the public sphere. It is an intimate place where people invite you in, and it is okay to ask. We're going to take a couple of technical questions, but I just want to give you an example of it being okay to ask. So my husband is a real sucker for just about anything that's being sold on the street, whether that is like timeshare condominiums or beaded bracelets. And I always know that he is like genuinely uncomfortable saying, no, thank you, not interested, no, thank you, if we're walking through like a market or whatever. And I'm like, Alf, they're billboards. They are human beings, yes, and you want to nod and smile and you want to say no, thank you politely, but you are not obligated to engage. And that's how your audience is going to feel. If they're not interested, they're just not going to engage with it. They're not going to be mad that you asked. They're not going to think, oh, you're pushy. They're just going to scroll on by and not subscribe, or the 15th or 20th time you post it, they'll go, oh, wow, that's right. I keep meaning to subscribe to that. Jenny, we've got a couple of technical questions. Random specific questions. Summer asks, where do you put the sign up link on your email when you say, hey, you can use this to sign up if somebody forwarded it to you?
Oh, I mean, you can just put it at the bottom as a recurring block. You don't even have to do it every time. It's just here's how to sign up. Or did you like this email? Forward it to somebody. So the thing about asking, I see a couple questions about that and the falling into the spam folders and stuff. You have to ask, you have to get comfortable with asking all the things. So that means when somebody signs up for your email, they're going to get a thank you. There's an automated, most things have an automated thank you. And if you're doing what Allison suggested and you're using an Excel spreadsheet and you're sending your own email, you can send a thank you when people sign up one at a time. Just thanks for signing up for my email. I appreciate it. And you can even in that thank you, whether it's handwritten or automated, also say, please move us out of your promotional folder. We will land in there. You will not see this email you signed up for. Here's how to do it. A lot of people have the actual step-by-step how to do that because people still need to know that. They still need to be told that. So getting over that idea that you're bothering people or you're being too salesy or any fear there or nervousness you might have needs to start right then. So ask them, get out of the promotional folder right now. If you're setting up an email sequence for new users, which is kind of an advanced tactic, you could have that in every one of those emails that you send to a new, make sure we're not going into your spam. And that asking is a thing to get comfortable with in all ways, in all places. And it's sign up for my newsletter. Please send it to your friends. Tell 3 people. I love what I wrote this week. Share it around. All that kind of asking it's not bugging people because they want what you're selling. They've come for what you're offering. They feel your energy and they want that. And you're actually doing a disservice to them and to yourself if you're playing small around that. And
Let me
oh,
let me
go.
add in too, as far as like getting stuck in the promotions tab, the more you can encourage them to reply to you, even if it's just with something super quick, like, where do you think I should go next week to promote my book? Or, what would you suggest for this? Or respond to this tweet. The more people interact with the email, the more Gmail recognizes it as a legit email and starts to move it into an area where they will interact with it. My welcome email invites people to reply and tell me what they're writing. And we all like to say what we're writing. We all want to know if somebody's interested in what we're writing. And I respond to every single one of those emails, and maybe one day I will get to a point where I can't handle the volume. But for right now, it takes me 30 seconds to read their email and sincerely thank them and say, oh, wow, your book sounds interesting. Have you thought about this resource? Or, I think so-and-so would really enjoy your book. I'll match you guys up on Twitter. And it's really nice to just be in that kind of human contact space. Jenny, what email service do you use? And if you don't mind telling us, how big is your list right now?
I don't mind telling you at all. My list is just under 5,000 and I have a 48% open rate, which is outstanding. And I'm very proud of that. And we are using at Author Accelerator, we moved into using HubSpot, which is a very expensive, very complex system that allows for an enormous amount of segmentation. It's not a thing that you would want to do unless you're running an enterprise system. But in the beginning, I used MailChimp for quite a long time until I hit their free, I think it was 2,000 people at the time was free. And then when I hit 2,000, I moved to ConvertKit. And then when we needed the functionality of HubSpot, we moved to HubSpot. So the tools that are available though, the MailerLite, the MailChimp, all of those, they're so good. They're so good. And they work for so long. And, it can be a goal to hit the place where it's not free anymore,
I myself work in Substack. I am creeping up between 3,000 and 4,000 right now. This was the year I kind of got serious about email. And it's actually been kind of fun and pleasant. I use Flowdesk, and the reason I ended up using Flowdesk, the pricing is constant. It's $19 a month, no matter how many list people you have. And in the follow-up email to this episode, we'll send you an affiliate link where you can sign up and get half price for the first year, which will make it $19 a month. But more than that, it is fun to use. I actually think, oh, good, I get to sit down now and make my email. And it's fun to make pictures and make it pretty and, say nice things and style it. And it's so much more rewarding for me than using programs that were a little bit more complex to use or that just weren't fun. Louise, I don't have a Substack. I have a Flowdesk, unless you are talking to other Allison. So Jenny, how does Substack fit into this whole ecosystem? Because lots of people are saying they use Substack.
I am not a Substack user, so I can't really speak to that. What I know as a reader is that people tend to move to Substack when they want to monetize their newsletter. That's what I'm seeing out there. But I don't actually know. I can't offer anything on Substack except for that little anecdotal piece.
Well, I think the advantage to Substack is there is some level of discovery factor where people who subscribe to other emails may get recommended by you. And
Right.
if you are able to, if you're able to make like a little network of other people on Substack, and that might be a great thread to start in whatever writing social media group you are in. Who else uses Substack? Do you want to put each other on our recommendations list? That can be something that helps you get some motivation there. Yolande points out that ConvertKit has started a paid feature for their lists too. I will say the main thing about paid newsletters is you got to have something worth paying for. Like it's got to be constant, need-serving content that rewards them at a very high level for people to be ready to actually pay for it. And I think for the vast majority of us, email is much more useful as a thing that we give rather than a thing that we expect to take from, if that makes sense. Jenny, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I agree. If you're going to monetize your newsletter, I feel like you need to think of it as a product. It's a thing that you're creating and producing and selling, just like you would a book or a course or any other thing that you would make. And so that takes it into a whole different universe. And I like your sentiment, Allison, that thinking of your newsletter as a place where you give, and until such time as you're ready to launch a book or something else, and then that's when that habit of asking is going to come into play, because you're going to be asking these loyal followers who have been reading you and coming to you and sharing you with their friends to now give something to you. And it should be an easy ask at that point. It shouldn't be like, oh, sorry to bug you. It should be, we've got this thing going, we've got this conversation, you're in my world, you get my energy, and now I have something even bigger to offer you. And, I'd love for you to pre-order or do, whatever it is you want to ask. But yeah, once you start charging for it, it's kind of a different beast.
Narissa asks, how often should you email your audience? And the guidance I've always heard is try for once a month, or they forget that they subscribed to you. Don't do it more than once a week, or they get sick of hearing from you unless you have incredibly compelling content.
Yeah, and the thing you said earlier, that Gmail algorithms pay attention, I have recently read that in fact, if you're not sending more often than once a month, that's going to ding you every single time you send. And so that by not sending frequently, you're actually hurting yourself in getting through to their inbox if you're in using Gmail, and so many people are, that it really matters. I think for this, you should pay attention to the newsletters that you like and that you follow and how often they send you. I'm on people's newsletters list who mail multiple times a day, and who I've actually never bought anything from, and I still stay on their newsletter list because I enjoy them and I like them. and I don't mind being inundated with them. I just shuttle them off to a file in my inbox and um, look at them from time to time. So this goes back to, you can't be afraid of your reader. I I really think you should strive for once a week. Much less than that is starting to be bad for the algorithms, and people are not going to have you top of mind. They're not going to remember you. They're not going to feel like they're engaged with you. And that's what you're really, it really is a relationship that you're building. And if that feels overwhelming, you can batch your content, and you can write 4 emails in one sitting, line them up to go out once a week, and not have it be a weekly burden on your plate. But I really like the idea of batching things. I mean, what I personally do, I have those buckets I mentioned. These are the things I write about. I have places everywhere to take notes on ideas. So there's a, reminder on my phone where I can dump an idea. There's on my computer, I have notebooks. I mean, everywhere, my car, where I can, if I have an idea, I write it down. Because that's the hardest thing, is the ideas come and go from your head. And if you can capture them and then sit down and write them in batches, it becomes, you build the muscle of how to do that. And so what I tend to do is I think out about 6 weeks about what I want to be writing about. And then if something happens that's timely or interesting or demands to be written about right now, I just insert it in and I move my planned things out to a different time. I have certain emails that sit there just waiting until I don't have anything else to say, and it's like, oh, I already have one I wrote, I'll just drop that in. Maybe it's not the best thing I've ever written, but you have to remember, this kind of writing is different from book writing. It's not super polished. It's not meant to be the most beautiful,
Lower your bar. And weirdly enough, so I've been listening to a particular person's emails and podcast who is an email specialist. She charges people thousands of dollars to take her How to Send Better Emails list. They're all very conversational. And yes, I try to polish some of mine, but I also find that a conversational tone is more productive anyway, because that's what people are expecting from their inbox. The more polished you are, the more you sound like advertising. And I want to just counterpoint on the frequency thing, because I think there's a balance there as well. Yolande says a great thing here in the chat. I emailed my list for the first time after 2.5 years, and I only had one person unsubscribe and a 62% open rate. A business coach told me that for solo entrepreneurs, which I think writers are, agreed, they usually do remember you if you remind them who you are. And I want to say too that, like, for me, I don't send as often as Jenny does. I am regular with the, hey, these are the events upcoming that I hope you'll sign up for, plus a couple of funny sentences. But my stories email I send when I have something to say. And what works for me is that I'm really present in a lot of other places. Chances are, if you're on my email list, you've also been to a webinar with me sometime in the last 2 or 3 months, and you've spent an hour listening to me yammer about periods and commas. Chances are, if you're on my list, you also follow me on social media, and I'm active on Twitter probably 4 or 5 times a day. I'm active on Instagram a moderate amount these days. I'm active on Facebook a reasonable amount. And so for me, the newsletter is part of the larger context of all the places that people meet me. And the newsletter is the place where I can call them to action and speak to them as individual people.
I love that. And yeah, I see the idea, Allison's comment, to lower the bar. You have to lower the bar. I used to get a lot of comments in my to my newsletter about typos, and people would come after me, especially because they're like, you're a book coach or an editor and you've got typos in your newsletter. And it's like, yeah, because it's free and it's a thing that I sometimes do at 11 o'clock the night before, and I'm offering it to you. And if that bothers you, you should go away, right? It's like, this is not where I'm offering my highest, quality, whatever. So I do really think thinking of it more like a conversation or just a simple interaction with people who like you. I did want to not let, I think it was Jocelyn's comment go by, where you said I have a hard time keeping up with email, so I don't subscribe to many newsletters. And it's another reason I don't make one. I think people won't read it. So, oh, it's Jacqueline, not Jocelyn. Sorry.
Jacqueline.
So, Jacqueline, something I want to say to that I recently heard, and I can't remember where I heard it, which I'm sad about because it was not my original idea. But the concept was you are not your ideal reader or customer. Your buying habits or your user habits are not what your people's are. You can't make business decisions based on what you would or wouldn't do, because for the longest time I was charging rates for my coaching that I wouldn't pay myself, that I couldn't afford myself. And I would say to my husband, why would anybody do this? Like, I didn't, because I wouldn't do it. And I had to remember, though, that's they're not me. I'm now in a place where I do like to spend money on other people's services, and I can and I do. But in the beginning, I was not that person. And so I would not have gotten to where I am today if I had thought, well, I shouldn't charge this because I wouldn't pay it. So I would just say, don't imagine what your readers want or don't want until you have some proof for it, right? They may really want to hear from you. They may when they get the once every 2.5 years email, like, oh yeah, I remember I really liked that book, or I liked that person, or wonder what happened to them. They may really want to hear from you.
Exactly. And I've always been surprised with people responding and going, "Oh, good. It's so good to hear what you're up to." I want to give you guys a couple of quick tips and tricks. One of the ways that I can measure engagement with my newsletter beyond just, oh, they clicked a link, I set up a tweet that's something that asks for a comment, and I set it up the day before I send the newsletter so that there's already a little bit of engagement on it by the time anybody clicks on it from the newsletter. And then I have a little thing at the bottom that says, recently tweeted, tell me what your weirdest accident was, or, tell me what are you wishing for this Christmas. And then people also come over to Twitter and interact over there. And that lets me know who's reading carefully, which is kind of fun and neat and interesting. I also find that it's useful to put in the last couple of things I've written. Like if you're blogging or if you've written something that's been published somewhere, it can be really great to say, hey, I just wrote this blog, click over on the link and go see that. So remember that your newsletter is also a way to aggregate all the content that you're putting out that not everybody gets to see. It's a chance to make sure that everybody gets to see the cool thing that you did recently. Jenny, what goes in your newsletter? What do you put in there?
I just am laughing because sometimes I'm like, I don't know. um, I really am trying to hone in on these ideas of the buckets of what I write about. And I write a lot about the creative process in general as a general thing, and that bucket allows me to write about other creative people, whether they're musicians or actors or other writers. Or I saw in the chat someone earlier saying that they were breaking down a soap opera. I love that. And that doesn't mean that soap opera is your bucket. It could be, you might like the breaking down of things, or you might like just examining creative processes or people. So that's the thing that I write about a lot. I find myself more and more writing about the idea of monetization and pricing, and the conversations around money, and what writers will pay, and what is appropriate to charge, and these ideas and questions. And that's a topic that I tend to write about a lot. I'm constantly talking to our book coaches about charging more, charging what they're worth, valuing what they do, not falling prey to the idea that writers won't pay, these kinds of concepts. So that's a bucket that I'm in. And I write about becoming a book coach and what it is, and it's a new profession, it's a new thing, and where it came from, and who tends to be good at it, and what it means, and how you become one, and those sorts of buckets. So you can tell that my buckets they're both specific and broad at the same time in a way, and they allow me, like the bucket of book coaching allows me to write about other book coaches or other professionals or people writing books, like Allison's amazing 7 drafts book, or that bucket allows me to think big. And so when you have these buckets, like I said, the trick is getting good at recognizing ideas. And one of the things I do, I still get 3 physical newspapers that I wouldn't say that I read them, but I look at them every day. And I usually read parts of them, often on the weekend, but I'm constantly ripping things out and marking them up, a quote or a headline or an idea or a thing, and as a thing I want to write about, or it pings something in my head. And so, it's making yourself, it's the skill of looking for the story. And as a writer, you have that skill. It's a muscle you can build, and on a smaller scale.
In the chat, can we talk about how to handle dual audiences in the same newsletter if you are a writer and something else, whether that's editor or book coach or whatever? What I find in that my stories newsletter, I try to have a story that it's usually a travel story of some kind. In the pandemic, it was about traveling to my recycling bin. And I try to make sure that it is written well enough that the people who are following me because I'm a writer are interested in it. I try to make sure that it gives enough personal news that my relatives who are following it enjoy it. And then I usually have something extra at the end that's specifically for writers or specifically for editors. But I really am aiming for a more general audience with the vast majority of my newsletter content. And people are interested, even if they're not writers. People are interested in what your life is like. We were talking about, Jacqueline was talking in the chat about what might be material for her. I have no children. Jacqueline has 3 children. I'm not necessarily going to be riveted by, how to change diaper stories. And Jacqueline, I know your kids are long out of diapers at this point, but what I would be really riveted by is, here's what I do when my entire plan for the day falls apart, because I definitely experienced that. And so look for those larger themes in your specific personal experiences. Buick has a brand new book out. Congratulations, Buick. That is so exciting to see it in the world. And Buick is a songwriter. I'm not necessarily going to be like, oh yeah, man, I can't wait to hear about the process of songwriting. But I'm interested in her process because I'm interested in creative processes as a whole. Jenny, what's your thought on multiple audiences?
It's to be honest, it's something I struggle with a lot, and I am going through the same struggle. Is my newsletter, is the persona that is me who is writing the newsletter the CEO of this book coaching company, or am I a book coach who's working with writers and helping writers? They're really 2 different identities, and it is a struggle. And the only way that I have found around it is what we have been talking about, which is to rise above and find the things that are overarching to those multiple identities. The themes or the ideas are, again, those buckets that touch both of them. And I'm referring back again to Dan Blank and his idea of these keywords. And I talk to him about this a lot in regards to my own self and to other people that I'm helping. And he hammers away on this idea, which is taking a long time to get through my brain, but I believe it, where he says, those identities are not actually competing. They're parts of you. They live in you together. They are you. It's not like, oh, it's this and that. It's like, no, it's Jenny, right? So it's like, if I'm thinking it or interested in or writing it, it's me, and people are coming to that newsletter. I think that question of how do I balance these 2 identities kind of betrays this idea about that people are coming to your newsletter for a transactional reason. They want something, they want to learn X, or they want this skill, or they want to know this tactic. And I think that misses the boat. We come to people because you can, I mean, the internet is an incredible thing that we live in this time. You can just Google anything and find it out, how to write a scene, how to write better dialogue, how to develop your character, how to edit a book, how to be a book coach, anything. Type it in, find it, you got that information. You can watch a YouTube video, like it's not information that people are looking for. It's not facts and tactics and skills, because they can find that in 1,000 places. They're coming for you. And so if you can embrace the fact that whether I write about, how to start a novel or how to start a book coaching business, it's still all me. It's still all my beliefs and philosophies and energies. And you can tell that I'm quite passionate about it, and I can talk about this with a lot of authority. And it doesn't mean that it's easy to do.
I love that, because I feel like it ties into something. So we also have a paid membership program, the Express Lane, where we talk about different tips for building your platform. Everybody gets 2 emails a week. And one of the ones that I did recently was, if you are interested, you are interesting. It doesn't always have to be, somebody's saying, Suzanne's saying in the chat, she's, getting content fatigue. It doesn't always have to be about us. It can be about what we're interested in. So if you are fascinated by soap operas, or what you really love is tarot cards, or what you really adore is making watercolor paintings, audiences will really enjoy hearing about what you're interested in. And then when you make the transition from, hey, I shared 6 watercolor paintings with you, and I'm so excited to tell you I also have a book coming out next week. People aren't necessarily buying your book because they heard about it the magic 7 times of marketing. They buy your book because they enjoyed spending time with you. And I think that's something just to keep in mind as you keep going.
I heard Susan Cain on a podcast the other day. She's the author of Quiet and the new book, Bittersweet. And I don't know why she was talking about this, but she said that, I think I heard her on Jay Shetty's podcast, and Jay Shetty asked her, how do you start every morning? And she said that on her best days, she starts every morning by tweeting out a picture of a beautiful piece of art. Because for her, the antidote to all the chaos and noise and demands of the world is beauty. She said, I find solace and calm and energy in beauty. And so the first thing I want to do every day is share something that I find beautiful. And I just loved that, because it has nothing to do with being an introvert, which is what her first book was about. It has nothing to do with the melancholy tragedy of our world, which is what her second book is about. It has to do with the thing that she feels and believes as a human. And she started that practice. And I just thought that is a lesson we can all learn from, because it's not about the things she writes about. It's just about her as a person. It's the thing she does, and how lovely. So, it's kind of trusting, it's getting comfortable with this idea of buying and selling, or giving and taking, and receiving, and these different positions that we play as a writer, because we are all those things. We are people who give and who take, and who make things, and who want people to buy things, and we're all of those things. So I think the more you can embrace that reality in your own life, and be comfortable with it, and intentional about it, the easier this will all be.
Exactly. I really, really agree. We're going to take a quick moment in breakout rooms. Remember, it's never as weird as you're worried it's going to be, and you don't have to go to a breakout room. When we come back from breakout rooms, we're going to talk about 2 things you can do today to improve your personal newsletter experience, subscription experience. And we're also going to hear Jenny's number 1 tip for getting started. Welcome back from breakout rooms. In just a moment, we are going to get the 2 key things that you can do today to make your newsletter experience better. But I also want to let you know that our next episode is October 4th. It is my unique platform and how to build yours. And we're going to be talking to a terrific panel, including Jacqueline Greenberg, who's here with us tonight, who's going to talk about writing for mass media. We have Tia Levings, who's going to talk about finding a politically resonant issue and making that your primary platform. And we're going to talk to Megan Aronson, who is really lighting it up on TikTok right now. And I don't know about y'all, but TikTok is the platform that absolutely freaking scares me the most. So I'm really looking forward to hear what Megan has to say, because it looks like she's actually having a good time. So that will be our October the 4th episode. And do please feel free to forward this replay to a writer friend. So let's do 2 things that you can do today. And I have both a beginning and an advanced version. The beginners, start looking at the emails that you already subscribe to. Who do you enjoy and what do you enjoy about it? Make yourself a physical paper list. I love it when they tell a personal story. I love it when they tell me something funny they saw on social media. I love it when there's something meaningful in there. And also look at their format, because one easy way to get started is to copy somebody else's format. If you go, oh, it's always meme about writing and then personal story and then 3 events that they're excited about, you can copy that format. And honestly, as long as your content is new, nobody is ever going to notice. And it takes some of the weight off your shoulders. If you are a more advanced newsletter person, I want you to Google free QR code. And Jacqueline, I think this is going to address your earlier comment about what to put on your business card when you're trying to find different levels of privacy. Make a QR code that has your newsletter sign up link on it. Put it on your business card, put it on your displays when your books are out there, put it on your slides. It is a total game changer for somebody to say, oh, I want to subscribe to your newsletter. And you whip out your little piece of paper and go, here, just scan this. You can sign up right now. It has been so helpful and handy. Jenny, what is your number 1 tip for a simple thing that somebody can do today? And what is your number 1 tip overall?
I would say what you can do today is make a category in your reminders on your phone so that when you have an idea, you can put it right there and you always know where to capture those ideas. And then my number 1 tip overall is to get comfortable with the idea of asking and the idea of owning your categories and asking people to come into your universe and listen to what you talk about, and having authority over those topics and concepts. That's what writers do, and that's what you can do, and you can do it in your newsletter starting today, and it's so valuable.
Beautiful. I absolutely love that. So it is really important, folks, when somebody hands you their email, it is a little bit like a sacred trust. They are inviting you in to the place where they do their personal interactions, not just their business interactions, not just their public interactions. Email is a place where you can be authentic. You can get to know your audience. They can get to know you. So release yourself from the obligation of writing something that must be literary magazine quality every time, because really, they just want to hear how you're doing. And they want to hear something that will mildly entertain them or mildly make them laugh or mildly make them think. And you can absolutely tap that out anytime you like. And the more you do it, the better quality your writing will be as you keep going with it. It does become a habit. You do learn the format. Jenny, do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, just thanks for having me. It was fun. It's fun to be in your world.
You're so welcome. Thanks for being had. And thank you everyone so much for being here at the Writers Bridge. It is fantastic to have you. We were so glad to see you. Have a beautiful and great day. Happy writing. Please feel free to unmute yourselves for a happy goodbye.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks,
everybody.
Bye.
Nice to meet you, Helen.
Thank
Great
you.
session.
Thank you.
Thank you
Love
so
you,
much.
Abel.
Love.